No, still nothing. Tonight, a mix that's pure Canada, Quebec's new bid to write its own constitution, a cafeteria controversy out east that's stirring some strong feelings. From Montreal, I'm Eddie Tekalik.
And finally, we find out why Quebec is leading the country in happiness. I'm Gary MacDonald. This is Night Talk Canada, episode 55. First, a reminder to join the conversation. Let us know your thoughts on any or all of our topics tonight by posting your comments. Now, let's get started.
I say to them, that's a will for over 200 years. And that's really important for Quebecers to be able to recognize themselves in a constitution that will protect, strengthen, and unite them. And with that bill, we will put like the equality of women and men as a collective right and also as a fundamental value. And we will put that up higher than the freedom of religion. We will not accept anymore in Quebec that a person that will require a public service and that will say for religious matters, I don't want to be served by a woman because she's a woman. That's the end of the game. We don't accept that in our Quebec society. We have so much fight for that equality, we will not tolerate that anymore. So that's a concrete things that the Constitution do. Also, we will protect the right of mourir dans la dignité. We'll protect French, secularism, collective right. It's things that are really concrete. We will protect also the autonomy of Quebec with a bill about autonomy of Quebec. So these are, and we will protect the right to abortion by putting a responsibility on the shoulder of the states, because that's clear in Quebec that we want to be sure that women will always have their freedom to choose. And in our society, there is no discussion about that. But that's really important for the Parliament of Quebec, for our nation, to say the choice of the woman is the choice of the woman.
We begin tonight here in Quebec, where Premier Francois Legault has tabled what he calls the law of all laws, a new provincial constitution. Now, it pulls together Quebec's language and secularism and other laws, including various rights, into one sweeping document. And it's already stirring some national attention and conversation about it. And as you heard the Justice Minister who tabled the bill talking about it, they're really focusing on a few areas in particular. But there's one area that did not really seem to appear in there or any mention of it until reporters brought it up, and that is the age-old question here in Quebec. What about the protection of English-speaking rights?
Well, it's already the same clause that you already have in fundamental bills as Charte de langue française, Bill 21, and also a bill on la loi sur l'intégration nationale.
But if you look at the constitution that the Quebec Liberals are proposing, they propose to entrench the rights of the English-speaking community to services in English, health and education services in English. Why wouldn't you word it that way to make it stronger?
Well, it's already in la loi sur les santé et services sociaux, and it's already in the Bill 101 about that, Bill 96, because I did that when I was Minister of French Language. So it's already there.
So is this a bold declaration of identity or mostly political theater? Let's break down what's really in this so-called Quebec Constitution and why it matters beyond the St. Lawrence. Eddie, kind of seem to come out of nowhere. I know the opposition parties in particular are not happy with the way that Legault and his party are handling this. For instance, the Liberal leader suggested that instead of tabling it and then having consultations, there should have been some discussion prior to putting together a draft and getting ideas and then coming back, putting the draft out in front and discussing it from there. To me, it's a move and an effort really to try and shore up the CAQ's polling numbers. They are tanking big time. And of course, Legault is staring down the barrel of a provincial election next year.
Mm-hmm.
And given his the way his polling numbers have been dropping like a rock, is a year going to be enough? And is this going to be enough to appease his base support, which, as we've discussed on numerous occasions on this show, that base support is outside of the city of Montreal, basically
Right.
in the rural areas of Quebec.
Yeah, you know what, Gary? I mean, I listened very carefully and I read about what they were proposing and tabling, and putting yourself in the mind of our political leaders here in Quebec, I kind of understand what they're trying to do. Not that I agree with it. There's a difference. I understand what they're trying to do. But at the end of the day, the way this was suddenly thrust out there with very little consultation within Quebec's parliament, or very little consultation that the citizens of Quebec were aware of. This was basically thrown out there and let's go for it. And you know what, you being from the Maritimes, Gary, I mean, I know that anytime anybody at the political level sneezes in Quebec, it was very quickly heard right across the Canada, especially when it talked about what? Language. Anytime you want to get the Quebec population motivated and listening, especially the bases that the Parti Québécois and CAQ completely depend upon, you want to raise awareness, just say the word language. You want to raise awareness within that base, that population outside metropolitan Quebec and Montreal. All you have to do is speaking about protecting Quebec's culture, ethnicity, and language. You raise those things up, all of a sudden you're going to get people to listen to you. So just thinking historically about what political parties here in Quebec, especially the nationalist movements, tend to do, they'll speak about either one of those three. And in this particular case, Gary, because it's all one beautiful package, I hate using the word beautiful, one bundle, one constitution, it's all in there. So they're taking advantage of all three talking points, or all three areas of concern for the nationalist base here in Quebec. So they check mark on all three. So my opinion on this, and I think a lot of people are seeing this as nothing more as a desperation move by Legault's government and the CAQ. And I think when Legault won the last election, he was somewhere like 51 or 52% in terms of the popularity vote amongst all parties. He's dropped down to below 8%, Gary. So just looking at those raw numbers from the polls recently, this is a complete and absolute move of desperation. Maybe at another point in time, if this was presented, it probably would have been taken more seriously, that he's actually trying to do something for the province of Quebec and the people. And I mean people, everyone, including you, me as Anglophones, and the Quebecois, the people, the citizens of Quebec, your Francophones. This is far from it. This is political survival at its best. And you know what? This is I believe this at some point is going to backfire on him. When you start getting opposition, especially from the Parti Québécois, to something like this, you've stepped on some wrong toes, and I think it's going to get nasty. So only time will tell, Gary, as we as we approach 2026 and I think the election's in November of next year. Is a year enough time for him to turn this around? It all depends on how much poop he throws in the wall and how much of it sticks, and how much aggression is he going to get from the other two major parties in Quebec. And don't forget, the Liberals electing their new leader, they're starting to pick up some steam and starting to take away some of the CAQ strongholds, as well as the Parti Québécois, which is basically leading in the province right now in terms of polls. So this is a political move, absolute and pure, in my opinion.
And the PQ is already and has been talking about another referendum. What was it, within 2 years of
Yeah,
taking
yeah.
office? No, no
Hmm.
later than 2 years. So they're already talking about that. And of course, if Legault wasn't doing anything along the line that he's doing right now, then more and more of that support would bleed from the CAQ over to the PQ, and it would be bye bye Legault and company come next year.
Yeah.
However, the other side of it is, if you noticed, like, you couldn't get a calmer individual selling this as the justice minister the other day. Very,
Okay,
very
yeah.
calm, low key, and to me, it was almost like a soft sell in a lot of ways. We're just bringing everything in under one blanket instead of having the individual laws. But what's it going to do? And this is the other thing I'm waiting for, and I haven't really heard any discussion about it, is the whole things around what's in before the Supreme Court right now, and that's the um, under the Constitution, the clause. Oh my God, I just lost the name of the clause that Ford and Legault uses to.
Notwithstanding,
Thank you.
yes.
Yeah, the notwithstanding clause. I
Yeah,
just a brain
yeah,
freeze. Yeah, but there's no mention of the notwithstanding clause in any relation to this. However, that's been a favorite curveball of Legault's whenever he's brought out any the controversial legislation, including Bill 96,
right.
upgraded to 101 or whatever it was. They use the notwithstanding clause, so technically it can't be challenged in court for at least 5 years.
Right,
Although
right.
there is a challenge right now, and that's the other thing that was mentioned in this the other day, was the justice minister said that from going forward, like the school boards, and in particular the English language school board, is challenging, um, the Bill 96.
Right.
And he's saying now that whatever group it is, if it's publicly funded, you find the money to pay for the challenge yourselves.
Hmm.
You're not going to use public funds. Public funds will not be used any longer for any of these kinds of court challenges. Now, I'm kind of torn on that one. I don't necessarily disagree, because a lot of these challenges can be frivolous at times.
Yeah.
There are some that are needed, no doubt. But you know, if the money can be better spent in other areas providing the service that they're supposed to be providing, then do it. And maybe do what seems to be a natural reaction in Quebec and get support for a class action suit of some sort. I don't know. There has to be a legal way around it so that you're not using public funds. So I'm on the fence on that one. I'm not going to dump all over them for it, but I'm also reserving full approval of the approach they're taking. Now, it seems like the way this dropped, and it dropped in the mainstream media, it was like, oh, this is something new. So I did a little bit of digging, and really, provincial constitutions exist. And I didn't realize that they did in this manner, but they're largely unwritten and uncodified, meaning they're not compiled into a single constitutional document.
Well, it's a
this fall
combination of
spirit.
charters and bills, correct? And that's what
Yeah,
essentially
yeah,
they work by, and a mission and a mission statement. So you have the mission and vision statement for the next 4 years. You're looking
right.
at charters and bills that are used as a rule of law for governing the province. And I was just going to ask you about that. I mean, the moment you hear about Quebec putting a constitution together, you know what? Just that word constitution, I think, reverberates right across the entire country. Like, what is Quebec up to? And
Exactly.
does that set a precedent for other provinces to follow suit because Quebec decided to do it? To me, when I hear a province writing up a constitution, to me that sounds rather ominous and threatening, even though it might not be intended that way. That's the way it sounds at least in my idea of hearing this on the media and what they're speaking about, a constitution. Normally, it's a country that has a constitution, right? So
Right.
we've been living by charters and bills since God knows when. Now all of a sudden, a Quebec constitution, that's rattling the cage for sure.
Oh, big time, big
Yeah.
time. And again, tell me that Legault didn't know what he was doing in throwing this out and getting his base back in line.
Absolutely. Well, you know
Yeah,
what he's doing. I think by the same token, stirring the emotional well-being of Quebecers. Talk about language and whatever else, challenge to their culture. Um, I think what he's trying to do is to get some sort of a reaction from the rest of Canada and the rest of the premiers across the country to get some sort of reaction so the Quebec media can publish and show this so the Quebecers can see, oh boy, Canada is really not happy with us, and just raise the stakes as time goes on. So you know what? Well played by Legault. I'm not saying what he's doing is correct and right, but
yeah,
I think it was very, very carefully calculated to both get the emotional blood flowing in this province and at the same time rattle the rest of Canada's cage and goad them into saying something inappropriate that'll offend the average Quebecer. I think you're absolutely right, Gary. This was extremely well thought out.
yeah. And now let's look a little more at provincial constitutions. The
Hmm.
Constitution Act of 1982 granted each province the power to amend its own constitution through Section 45, which allows provincial legislatures to unilaterally amend the constitution of the province by passing ordinary provincial laws. Now, the only areas that are not affected by this, territories. Territorial constitutions are federal statutes, and so only the federal parliament can amend them. Unlike provinces, territories exercise powers delegated by the federal government rather than constitutionally recognized powers. So, in short, all provinces have constitutions, mostly unwritten, but territories do not have their own constitutions. They're governed by federal legislation. So it's not like Quebec's breaking new ground here, but I mean, even I kind of bought into it initially that, oh, what's going on? Like, here we
Right.
go. First we have the Maple Magas in Alberta talking about separation. And now, Quebec's coming back around and we're going to be in the midst of it. And so much for all of the national unity that we had back a few months ago. Where did that go? So,
Yeah.
yeah. But, it why it really matters? Well, it's going to define Quebec's self-image and could reshape future court challenges on language and all of the other issues that Quebec seems to want to wade into at times.
Hmm.
You know, so, you know, again, can a province legally constitutionalize? Yes, it can.
Hmm.
Absolutely. Now, the political timing, the unity move, and coming amid falling polls. Yeah, you know, it's like the old saying: if it looks like a duck, it quacks like a duck, then it is a duck.
Exactly.
And that's what this is. It's a play by Legault to the base, trying to bring the base back.
But I'd like
Now,
to comment on how you had mentioned how cool the Justice Minister was,
yeah,
Barrette. You know what? He didn't even flinch when he was challenged by the English reporter about the inclusivity of the English population within the wording of this particular draft, as they're calling it, the draft constitution, asking him
right.
why it wasn't worded in there, and he very coolly said, "Well, it's included in the wording of Bill 101. I think he mentioned Bill 21 or something like that." So cool and casual and nonchalant about it. It's like basically almost brushing aside what the reporter was asking. So I have to compliment him on his coolness on this. Definitely well rehearsed, definitely well prepared for an inevitable question from the English media, English journalists, and he was well prepared and he answered it. Now, I'm not saying it was a good answer to my level of satisfaction, but he basically said exactly, he didn't lie. It is there, and
Well,
everything's being included in this big package. So why should we have to reword it?
yep.
I believe he should have put something in there if he was like when they speak about the inclusivity, right? As we're speaking to the inclusivity, there should have been some mention made of it. Maybe there's going to be some mention made of it later on once they actually table the Constitution as is. But right now, it's in a draft stage, right?
But in his response to
Yes.
that particular reporter's question, he did mention that, um, and I forget exactly how he phrased it, but he put that, I won't call it a guarantee about the English speaking rights. He said, that was included in the next bill when they modified Bill 96 and into
Right.
Bill 101 or whatever.
Hmm.
It was in that number range anyway. And he said, I was minister of the Francophone language at the time, and
That's
I
right.
made sure it was put in and just kept on rolling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So smooth. And like I say, such a soft sell in a lot of ways, but the message was delivered bang on. Like, a really good exercise in communications. If, there are any people watching that
I would.
taking communications right now, go back and
Yeah.
watch his responses again.
Yeah. I would dare to say he responded in a very premier-like fashion. He handled
Very
himself
much so. Yeah,
really
very much so.
as a leader. He really responded, and he almost demanded from the listener and the viewer, demanded from them that they recognize his leadership qualities. And you know what? In that sense, I think he did a great job.
Yeah, and I remember watching him when he was minister of French or whatever the title was. He did an episode with the Montreal Gazette's The Corner Booth podcast,
Hmm.
and I watched that episode, and like I walked away impressed by the guy because, again, cool, calm, really pulled together. Nothing caught him off guard. Nothing, even if they threw him a curve, it was just psh, and he could come
Hmm.
back and had facts to go with it. And I thought, wow, this guy's got a real future ahead of him politically if he wants it.
Yeah. What do you think, Gary? We should expect over the next couple of months, in terms of fallout from the rest of the country as a result of what Quebec's attempting to do here.
I I actually think if there was going to be any significant fallout, it would have been over the past week.
Hmm.
And really there has been crickets. And I'm not expecting to hear much more than that going forward because right now there are too many other things that are occupying the rest of the country as well. And part of it is that whole unified approach by the premiers. There's some major cracks there that Carney's got some problems to deal with out west between Alberta and British Columbia over
Hmm.
pipelines and oil tanker bans and you name it. Uh, and now, he's got Ford pushing to keep the tariffs on the Chinese electric
Yeah.
vehicles. And you've got others saying no, take them off so that the Wab Canoe and Scott Moe from
Hmm.
Manitoba and Saskatchewan in particular, because the Chinese are not buying canola, like they're done, and those are key cash crops to those two provinces. So on top of that, we're a little over 2.5 weeks away from a federal budget.
Yeah.
So there's just so much going on right now, Eddie, that again, whether it was by design or just pure luck, that when Legault dropped this, there were so many other things going on that those who have probably raised the biggest stink didn't really notice it because they're
Right.
chasing other issues.
Well,
Because I
and
really haven't heard any pushback, any real conversation about it at all outside of
yes,
Quebec, and I haven't
so
heard a
far,
whole lot in Quebec.
yeah, so far neither have I. I was expecting to hear a little more. Maybe it's just a question of time, and maybe you're right, Gary. Not maybe. I think you are right in terms of what you just commented on. That Canada is busy with bigger fish to fry at this particular point in time. The Carney government's got bigger fish to fry. I mean, that constant pressure from the Americans dealing with critical issues around the world, and then you're looking at some of the infighting, and I'm not saying infighting with any level of malice. Infighting in terms of the premiers getting the best they possibly can for their constituents and their provinces. So you'd expect a little infighting, and yeah, these guys got quite a bit. Carney's got quite a bit of work to do. And then you look on the other hand. Let me throw another question at you on the other hand here, and on the other spectrum. So what Quebec is. I mean, obviously we knew this is a political move. We know it's a political move of survival. But let's look at it one step further. This particular activity of creating a full-blown Quebec constitution, as it's going to be tabled, do you see it actually providing any value to Quebecers like yourself and myself as Anglophones? Or you know what? We have quite a few friends that are Quebec natives. They're born in Quebec. Is this going to provide any value for them in terms of improving their lives today and tomorrow? Which begs the bigger question, right? Legault, are you doing this for yourself, or are you doing this for the benefit of Quebecers? I wonder what that is, because I really didn't get a feeling one way or the other that this was going to improve anybody's life, besides further strengthening, some of their secular laws and so on and so forth. I don't know. I just didn't get that in the message. Maybe to stay tuned. So there's something to become out of this, but I really didn't get a sense that this was going to improve or enhance anybody's life here in Quebec.
No, in the research I've done to this point, I don't get that sense either, Eddie.
Okay.
I again, to me, it's more of just a play to the base, because the laws they're talking about are already in place. They're just, like I say, putting like an extra layer around them, and to, I guess, maybe protect them a little more as far as various challenges or questions or whatever. And here's the other thing, you know, is it, does it go beyond being a legal statement? And is it also a cultural statement? Because
Mhm.
again, you heard in that first clip when he was outlining some of the main aspects of the bill, the draft legislation. You heard he zeroed in first of all on the issue of abortion and how that's a woman's right to choose will be protected in Quebec,
Mhm.
and also, which I found interesting, that he even included this particular point about if you're not going to be able to refuse, like a woman, for example, if you need a specialist, and I think he used a urologist,
Yeah.
you're not going to be able to say, oh, no, 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 I don't want a woman, blah, blah, blah. You're not going to be able to do that.
Mhm.
Now, there are issues. I can see issues, as far as on both sides, from men and women not being comfortable with doctors of the opposite sex being involved in certain examinations
Procedures
and
or whatever.
things.
Yeah.
Yeah, proceed. Yeah, I can understand that there may be some who are a little bit shy about that, I guess, for lack of a better term. But there are also those who, from their culture, like they don't consider.
I think that's what the point
Yeah,
he was trying to make,
yeah.
not the first one, but this one.
I'm thinking that's where it was coming from, without really stirring up a hornet's nest. It's out there,
Hmm.
and this is the way it's going to be. Now, you know, I don't understand someone who would think that way. I don't get it, because as long as the doctor, the specialist, knows what they're doing, and they make me feel comfortable in their abilities and everything, I don't doesn't matter to me if they're male or female. Like, let's just let's get this done, because I want to come out of it on the healthy side, right?
Hmm. Right, right.
So I found it interesting that he slipped that in, and there was a direct message being sent there as well, and that, I guess, would come back around to, it is an identity message, a cultural message. Quebec culture, we do have a different culture than even the rest of the country, that can be enjoyed by everyone, but he's also sending the message that others who are coming in from outside the country and from different cultures, you're going to adapt to the culture in which you live, or
Hmm.
too bad. And I don't see anything wrong with that.
No, neither do I. I mean, you had mentioned Quebec. It's a beautiful culture here. I mean, I'm an Anglophone in Quebec. I speak French and English. It's a beautiful, beautiful province. Once you get to understand it and live in it, do I agree with some of the policies by the Quebec governments? No, not at all. Doesn't mean I agree with everything, but at the end of the day, it's a pretty vibrant and resilient culture. I'll be the first one to promote it and defend the French language. I have nothing wrong with the defense of the French language. So I understand Quebecers. I understand the province. I love the province. I've been here my whole life. And you're absolutely right. There's a lot to appreciate here within the province of Quebec and out of the province of Quebec. There's a lot to appreciate here, and there are certain things that I would expect the government to do to ensure that they serve the population the best way they possibly could. And this particular comment about somebody refusing the services of a female doctor, at the end of the day, he wants to make sure that you have a doctor available to you in the first place. They're so hard to come by. And if then you have any sort of religious belief that prevents you from acquiring the services of a female doctor, well, sorry, that's the way it works here. Here's what I offer you. If you don't want to take what we're providing you as a result of public services and funding, well, you're gonna have to find somebody else yourself. So
Yeah.
I'm with you 100% on this one, Gary. I agree with you.
And that culture, like, plays into our last segment of the stream tonight as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, I can't imagine, given the pressure on the healthcare system, not only in this province but right across the country. I can't imagine somebody coming in and refusing treatment because of the sex of the doctor. Like, you're lucky to be able to get in front of a specialist
I'm
within a
suspecting.
reasonable
I'm
amount of time.
suspecting it happens more often than not. I mean, why would the justice minister actually bring up something like this?
Yeah.
So I am almost certain there's a lot of truth behind what he actually said. and it's unfortunate, but look, it's a person has a right to decide what they want to engage in, what services they want to undertake, what services they want to benefit from that the government provides, and it's up to the individual to refuse it. If they wish to go private and find themselves an alternate solution, good luck, and go, be on your merry way. But these are our laws, and this is what we're providing you with. So, you know what? It's up to the individual. It's a free country. It's a free province. You can do what you like.
Yeah. And as I say, just to wrap it up, Eddie, it's strictly, really, to me, political theater on the part of Legault's part to prop up the sagging base, to offset what the PQ's been talking about and gaining in the polls with. And beyond that, beyond the borders of Quebec, I don't think it's had any kind of an impact. I don't think any eyebrows have been raised because of it. And, people are just moving on because there are so many other things to deal with at the moment. And the fact that whether we realize it, that each province does have some kind of a provincial constitution, whether it's a formal document or the various statutes, the laws, and most of it unwritten. So there you go. So in this case, a little bit of house cleaning maybe, and bringing it all in under one roof, so to speak. And maybe they're going to gain a little more protection from outside court challenges. Who knows? However, that's the way it is, and life goes on in Quebec and in the rest of Canada.
Well, time will tell. Let's see how hard they rattle that cage moving forward, right?
Absolutely. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Up next, I think, from constitutions to cafeterias, in New Brunswick, some parents are furious over halal-only hot meals at certain francophone schools. Is this an inclusion step or a communications failure? We're about to discuss that in a moment. But first, if you want to start a website, update your current web presence, and most importantly, ditch the US service that you've been paying, well, I've got something to tell you. I've been using Web Hosting Canada for almost 5 years now. WHC is a Montreal company with a national footprint and a wide variety of web services available at reasonable prices. So you can get more information through the link in the description below.
Okay, Gary. Just give me a second here. So, Gary, from politics to the lunch line, a New Brunswick school district is in the spotlight after reports that cafeterias across more than 24 schools have switched to halal-only hot meals. Supporters call it inclusive and practical. Parents say they weren't consulted and want a choice back on the menu. Tonight, we'll unpack what actually happened, why it spread so fast online, and where the balance lies between inclusion and transparency.
This I stumbled upon the other day, watching some issues on YouTube, and I thought, what's this? And it started out with a TikTok video that there's quite a story behind the TikTok video. And Jen, if we can.
Imagine receiving an email from your kid's school teacher asking you not to pack pork in their lunches anymore because it has become offensive to some of the children who are in the class. Some parents are writing emails to the teachers saying that there are Canadian kids showing up with bacon and ham in their sandwiches, and that's offensive to their religion. Just imagine that for a second. It's a school, not a refugee camp. There's an airplane.
So that particular TikTok has gone viral.
Hmm.
And of course, it's brought out a couple of the right-wing commentators on YouTube, and they're having a field day with it as well. And one of the commentators I watched mentioned about it happened in New Brunswick, and I said, "What? What? It's the first I've heard of it." So I went digging around, and sure enough, there has been an issue where Francophone South School District in New Brunswick, and that's a fairly large district, has made that move as well. And parents are upset over the whole issue because they say they weren't consulted other than all of a sudden receiving an email from the schools, the various schools, because it's like 26 schools in that district, that they were making this move. And the whole thing of it is, especially when you start digging down through, apparently some of the schools as early as about 2 years ago indicated that they were slowly moving in that direction. And now like the company that is in charge of providing the meals at the school cafeterias says that, yep, they've gone fully into it, and that for not only inclusion reasons, which is what the Francophone School Board is saying, that, you know, we felt that it was a good move as far as being inclusive. We want to be inclusive. And the company says it also means that they're cutting down on costs, you know, logistical costs and supply costs, because they're not running like two different meals. Yeah, and menus. And so if you go in, there are some things when you start looking around, you can't really find a whole lot like on the menus that are posted online for some of the schools, apparently. However, it did catch the attention once these things started going viral. And Jen, do you want to bring? Okay, so what that says, you have to bring. What's their game as far as becoming involved in this?
Right.
And so I did some digging, and I found, where did it go? They're a group that it's hard to tell whether it's like an independent group, but they have a website, they have social media platforms, mainly in French. They apparently they have an outlet in France and one here in Montreal, and it almost sounds to me like it's more of an independent kind of aggregate group. And Google. Anyway, so they're and they will comment on various issues like this and other issues. It's hard to tell if it seems most of it is what they've discovered in other media stories and videos and so on, rather than producing anything of their own. So Monel just popped in. Hey guys, are you getting our comments? No, we're not. Just got your comment now, Monel. So anyway, that's what they posted on their TikTok site. And I don't know how anyone could stand that music to stick around long enough to
Well, you know,
read.
to read it, yeah, it was
And
quite
if I
painful.
didn't want to find out what it was and how it related to what we're talking about right now, um, yeah, I would have just been, I
Yeah,
would have been
next.
gone.
Yeah.
However, TVA did a story on it. Radio Canada in New Brunswick did a story on it. And they did talk to some parents who were quite upset with the fact that the parents were never consulted that this was being done.
Hmm.
And, they bring up, there are a number of issues that are coming out of this. School board says, yeah, we're moving ahead for inclusiveness. Well, so are you saying to one group, well, you can't bring these, kinds of sandwiches, meat sandwiches to school anymore because we're only serving this type to be inclusive? In discussion
Where,
earlier we were having about this, it's not like, yes, you don't take peanut butter into school because there's a medical condition involved with it.
right.
This is more a religious issue. And here we have a creep that's taking place. And frankly, if I'm a parent with a child or children in any of those schools, I'd be pretty pissed off right now.
Yeah, I would not be happy either. Like, I mean, this can take you to different levels of conversation, right? First of all, yes, the school board should have consulted at least the parent teacher committee or some sort of communication to the parents before drawing a line. You know what? Okay, fair enough. You're looking at ways to cut back on costs. I get it. That part I get, but to basically use a free Canada's, you can practice whatever religion you want. There's no question about that. It's part of our constitution. It's part of what makes our country great and proud. There is a fine line. There is not a fine line. There is a pretty decent line. Look, what does that mean? I mean, my kids are all grown up, and I'm just thinking back in my days when I was packing their lunches. So I get a letter like this, and I'm saying to myself, so what's the school board trying to tell me? I can't put a hot dog in a bun for my son to microwave and eat. What does that mean? He can't have leftover uh, pork veal chops in a sandwich or in a Tupperware because it offends another child or another student that's sitting beside them. That's way beyond something I, as a citizen, would be willing to tolerate. For me, it's simply, well, don't look, don't taste, don't eat, as opposed to imposing beliefs that have absolutely nothing to do with me, and beliefs where, you know what, we welcome everyone into Canada, but don't start imposing religious beliefs on the population if they choose not to pursue what your or support what your beliefs are. Uh, as we had in segment one, right, with the female doctor. Well, this is the way things are here. You don't want to have a female doctor work on you or try to bring you back to health. That's your choice. I would even extend it into what we're discussing right now about the lunches being served, and lunches that are being brought in by children that their parents packed for them. Look the other way. And you know what? I'd even go a step further. How many 10-year-olds do you know are going to go, oh my God, there's pork beside me? I think this is more of parents trying to ensure that their children follow a specific religious protocol, which is great. I have no problem with that. But don't impose that religious protocol and buck my rights as a parent to feed my child whatever I care to feed them. I it takes a lot for me to have my feathers ruffled when it comes to religion and the imposition of religious beliefs, and whatever people want to worship, how they want to worship. I'm 1,000% behind that. Don't impose that on me as a Canadian citizen. That's my take on that, Gary. And I'll put it out there. That's just the way I feel, and I believe it's not a right wing or left wing thing. I'm a moderate fellow. I'm thinking right in the middle here. I'm sorry. Do not impose your beliefs on me, just like you don't want me to impose my beliefs on you. It's just not right. So I think the parents in New Brunswick, or any parents of any school board anywhere across the country, if this was to happen, I clearly understand frustrations that would result from this. It's just in my books, it's not right.
No, it's not right. And, over the last number of years, as a country, we have really drifted to be way too open, way too easy
Yeah,
about a lot of things. And it comes back to we have a cultural identity as Canadians. And it's great to be a diverse country and have all kinds of diversity around you and welcome in other cultures. But here's the thing. You, as whatever culture you're a member of, you do what you do at home to preserve your culture. You do what you do in a very low key manner to try and show your culture to your new neighbors, like talk about it. Like, I'm not a big fan of in the past when governments have spent money trying to promote unity and you know um, for this culture, that culture, whatever. To me, if your culture means that much to you, then you're going to embrace your culture in your home. You're going to make sure that your family, as they're growing up, understand your culture, and they're also going to understand the culture in which they live. But don't come out and march. Don't come out with your protests and say to me that this is the way it has to be.
yeah,
Check some of that thinking, way of thinking, and some of those battles that you have at, at home before you leave to come to another country.
hmm
It's as simple as that. Otherwise, anyway.
Well, Gary, it
I
comes
just
down. Where
I
does it
just feel
stop?
we've gone too far
Yeah.
and we've been way too lax in the way we've handled some of the situations that have popped up, especially in the last 2 years, in the wake of the October 7th massacre.
Yeah, yeah.
You know,
Gar-
and what really burns my butt is in the last year, and especially in the last few months, we've heard about all of the suffering in Gaza.
mhm.
And yes, like it's a shame what's happening there. It's a tragedy. But at the same token, all of a sudden, the 1,200 Israelis who were slaughtered, you never heard them mentioned.
Mhm.
You know, like the whole focus had shifted, and somebody, somewhere along the line had managed to shift that focus away from how it started and what there is now. So, like, again, as a country, I think one thing that makes Canada unique is the diversity.
Correct.
But there's a balance there because as a country, we have our own very distinct culture. And we welcome other cultures and
hmm
we welcome them putting their cultures on display and embracing them to a point. But don't overrun us with your
Yeah.
culture. Try to
Well,
bulldoze us.
I get what you're saying, and I agree with it too. I mean, I think inclusion is a very, very important word for a country like Canada and many European countries. Inclusion is extremely important. But as you said, there is a line. I mean, you can't be inclusive while giving up your culture, giving up your identity and your culture for the sake of inclusion. I mean, look, I mean, the way I'm thinking about this, okay, so fair enough. So we're looking at halal in this New Brunswick school. Okay, so you're going to have another community group that's going to come up to the school board and say, you know what? Beef. no, we don't do beef. You must do something about that. So what's going to happen now? This new Brunswick school board has sent out a message regarding pork. Now they're going to send out a message to parents that they're not going to be serving beef anymore in the cafeterias, and we don't want your kids to be bringing beef to school either. Okay, so now parents resort to a shrimp salad or a lobster roll for a sandwich if you can afford it, and then you're going to have another culture group say, "Oh, geez, you know what? My child to be exposed or near anything that looks like shellfish, it's against our religion." So, Gary, where does this stop? Our kids are gonna be eating vegetables, and then you're gonna have another group saying, "Well, you know what? We can't be destroying plants and this and that." They have feelings. So, that's a stupid way of thinking about it, but Gary, where does the line get drawn? I mean, this is absolutely ridiculous. What makes one religion more important than the other? Because at the end of the day, what our kids are going to be sent home for lunch, and that's the only way we're going to be able to avoid this feeling of non-inclusivity. Send your kids home to eat. I don't know. I mean, I'm being sarcastic here, but you know what? That's the thought that crossed my mind. Where does the line stop? No
Yeah,
beef, no
exactly.
pork, no shellfish. All right, what are we left with? Peanut butter? Well, you can't send a kid with a peanut butter sandwich to school because some other kid might end up dying because of it. Like, come on. I'm 100% behind what you're saying, Gary. It makes absolutely no sense in our country. There shouldn't be any room for that kind of those kind of decisions being made on behalf of parents without consulting them, first of all, and second of all, that kind of infringes on my rights as a tax-paying Canadian since the day I started working here. It doesn't work for me. I'm sorry.
Yeah. All right, let's go to some comments. They're coming in now, and no, they're not. Okay, that's not working. Let me try this again. Here, just hang with me for a minute. We'll make it fit.
There we go.
Up here. There. Okay. Manel, sorry that even that bothered me when I had to send my son to school and I had to check everything for peanut allergies. That's hard enough. No pork. What's next? The vegetarians are going to say no meat. Okay, so, and then she had one more comment. And then the vegans are going to say no milk, no cheese. This stops where exactly?
Yeah, exactly. My point. Absolutely.
And then Jen comes in with, while I agree with you, Eddie, it makes me wonder how schools handle the holidays nowadays. Do Christmas concerts still exist? Is this pushed on those who perhaps don't celebrate, as this new food rule is being pushed on those who aren't members of that religion?
Good point.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that goes to the day. That goes back to the days where our school boards were segregated based on religious belief. You either had a Catholic school, you had a Protestant school, and then you had some other denominations. So, good point, good question. I really don't know what goes on in the schools anymore. Don't know.
No, and I remember last year there was a school where there was Remembrance Day service. They had a veteran coming in to speak to the Remembrance Day assembly. And at the last minute, there was someone felt it was not proper to do that. And they canceled it, and it raised, and I mean, that went national, viral, just boom, like that.
I remember that.
And yeah, 2 days later, the veteran was in talking to the kids about war and what Remembrance Day was about. I'm sorry, like, what are we becoming as a society? You know, we went through in the first few years of Trudeau. Trudeau was apologizing to everyone and anyone who felt that they had been slighted somehow, even in war. It's war. You win or you lose, but you don't apologize. Like when I heard that, and then, again, apologizing about changing the name of a university in Toronto because the individual that it was named after had, dealings in, I think it was the residential schools. And Sir John A. Macdonald, the same thing. Our very first prime minister in this country, and they're toppling his statues and putting them away because he was such a nasty man. No, you know what? That was the culture and the times that they lived in. And I'm sure 100 years from now, the civilization in this country will be looking at a lot of things that happened during our time on this earth, Eddie, and say, oh, this was wrong and that was wrong. But you know what? You don't rewrite history. You look at it and you learn from it.
Learn from it, correct. You don't hide it. Absolutely.
No.
I'm the same thought, toppling some of these statues and changing some school names and whatnot for the sake of, I'll use the word inclusivity again, if you want to call it. I don't know what we're teaching our kids or what we're teaching our grandkids. How are they going to understand what the country they're living in right now, what they went through to get to where they are today? You don't speak about the Canadian contribution during the First and Second World Wars. Talk about the peacekeeping efforts because, we don't want to speak about war. That's just the nature of the world, unfortunately. You can't hide that. And you're absolutely right. This has to be discussed so children can learn, people can learn from different ways of life and to improve upon it. Was what these guys did or what they believed in incorrect today? You know what? Probably yes. But that doesn't necessarily mean you need to discredit all of their accomplishments because of beliefs back in those days. And I would be hard pressed to find any country that did not have a turbulent past, or their leaders having a turbulent past. I mean, you don't have to go further than France and England and the Crusades and the executions and the public flayings and all that. Yeah, this is the way civilization grew from a horrible place on the planet, and even as recent as the 1800s and then 1900s. Yes, there was a lot of horrible things that went on, perpetuated by some of the leaders of a lot of civilized countries today. But that's just part of the history. Not that you agree with it, but that's just part of the history. And a lot of good men, a lot of great women had some things that they went through and that would not be very popular. Does that mean you basically write them off of history? No, I agree with you, Gary, especially with John A. Macdonald. I think the issue there was support of slavery or something to that effect. And I'm sorry if my history eludes me right now, but that doesn't necessarily mean you just wipe them off the face of the country or the face of the earth. It's part of our history, right?
Yep, exactly. Let's go back to comments for a moment. And Joe chimes in. Where is all this rooted? Religion. What are many conflicts based on? Religion. Keep your personal beliefs at home. Joe, I've had this discussion as well as far as religion is concerned. And sometimes just shake my head and point and say, religion involved. Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
I have my own beliefs. I don't impose them on anyone. I don't even mention them to anyone. And, that's the way it is. And that's the way it should be.
Yeah.
Right down to, the person standing on the street corner with the awake or whatever the hell that's called. And they smile. I've had some of them get in my face trying to get me to take their magazine and convert me. Imagine them wanting to convert me. Barking up the wrong tree. So, where are we here? Deborah comes in. I feel differently about the renaming of places named after abusers. If one of our children had been put in a residential school where they were treated horrifically, you're darn right I'd be angry. I understand where you're coming from, but again, my position is you can't rewrite history. And again, that was the mindset of the culture of the day when you really think about it. So let's see now. Joe comes in with, I believe in a greater power, but not in any form of organized religion. Joe, you've hit the nail on the head. Organized religion is, yeah, I won't say anymore. Jen, we don't need to write them off of our history, but do we need to celebrate them through a statue as we continue to learn from history and continue to discover it? I'm not sure which side of the fence I'm on this one.
Yeah, good point. I mean, Gary, you look at the Queen Victorias of the world.
Mm-hmm.
This is the British Empire, one of the most brutal empires to expand their horizons you can think of on this planet. But yet, as Canadians, we celebrate Victoria Day.
Yeah.
You know, like how aggressive do you want to get with wiping history off the map? I mean, statues are statues, and you know, I don't think there's a right or wrong answer to this. Really, it's just I'm just a supporter of history. You know, if the individual just continue to be very bad for humanity in general, right across the board, maybe that begs a different question. But like, where do you draw the line? And every one of the comments that's coming in right now, and I'm glad it started to work. They're all bang on. None of them are wrong. None of the comments are wrong here. None of the views are
No.
wrong. It's just, where do you draw the line in terms of ensuring inclusivity, that nobody's going to be insulted as a result of celebrating a leader's past? I don't know what the right answer is. I really don't.
Okay, let's see now. Some more comments. Jen, we don't need to write them off of our history, but we do need to celebrate them through a statue as we continue to learn from history and continue to discover it. I'm not sure which side. Okay, yeah, sorry. Monel, let's see. Monel comes back with, you don't have to wipe him off the face of the earth, but you also don't have to celebrate by putting statues up to a man who supported slavery. You can talk about him, but really. And Deborah says, it's not rewriting history, it's holding those responsible accountable. And I can never get my tongue around this word, so I'm not even going to attempt it. Anyhow, yeah, no, I trip on this every time. But what she's saying is, you know, it's holding them accountable in even after the fact kind of thing. Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm still like I guess I'm way over here somewhere from, I see where Monel and Deborah and Jen are coming from in particular. But by the same token, I'm still over here, like in my mindset. Again, those people were living and dealing in the culture of the day, which is far different from what the culture of Canada is today. And there were things that eventually that were common. They were the norm, right or wrong. They were the norm at the time. And today they're not. But also, some of these people, like Sir John A., for example, contributed immensely to this country, the founding of this country. And so do you write that off altogether and don't honor that in the same way as you draw attention to the other side, their dark side, or what is now their dark side? You know, there's like a 50-50 here, I think. I would suggest anyway. That's where I'm at.
Yeah, I'm of the same mindset as you, Gary. Being a lover of history, it's, like I said, with every country's development, I don't care if you're 50 years, 100 years, or 500-year-old empire. There's a lot of unjust things that happened, and there are a lot of things that happened that were considered mild then, maybe not even considered an issue back in those days, where by today's standards, as you had mentioned, some of them would be considered very, very unacceptable, in some cases atrocious. That's just the evolution of history and mankind in our country. And you know, I think a real nice example is Johnny MacDonald. Yeah, he did a lot for this country. And Sir Walter Laurier as well did a lot for this country to put it to where it is right now. And primarily, the reason why you and I are sitting in this wonderful country is a result of the hard decisions and leadership and things they succeeded in for this country back then. There are some things I agree that are not appropriate today, and by no means would I support anybody with some of those views as it stands today, because this is our society today. But it was a different time and a different place, a different culture and a different environment back then, Gary. And it's not comparing apples to apples, unfortunately, in my view. So I'm with what you're saying. There is a line, and I think we have to celebrate some of the good things that these individuals have done, and unfortunately, there are some bad things that unfortunately come along with that. You're looking at your George Washingtons. I mean, you can go all the way back then. They were all slave owners. Horrible, horrible. But look, who am I? I mean, this is for the philosophers to discuss and debate. But you know what? We all have our own individual views. I love history, and this just happens to be history of our country. And to some degree, you have to learn to embrace some of those accomplishments in parallel to some of the misgivings that we would compare them to today's standards, right? So, yeah.
Okay, we have a couple of more comments before we wrap up this segment.
Hmm.
And Monel says you can put them in a museum where you can discuss their beliefs, but you don't need to have statues in the street of these horrible people. So why don't we just ban statues altogether? Period.
Yeah.
You know, including in front of religious houses.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe that's what we do. Okay, and Jen says you don't write it off, you keep it in the history books with the other events that were dark but still important to learn about and from. That's
Yeah.
reasonable. Definitely, we can't turn our backs on it. No way. So, wow, what a lively discussion that turned out to be.
We started with the halal and our rights being infringed in grade school cafeterias. Look what we evolved to.
Well, exactly, and
Yeah.
this is the sort of discussions that should have been taking place in the Francophone South School District in New Brunswick
Correct.
before this takes place. Don't impose things like this on us. Let's have a communication about it.
Yeah.
And it was a communications fail all the way around, and that's just the way it is. And I find it really interesting tonight because a couple of times in the last couple of weeks, Eddie, that you and I have been getting a little worked up about certain issues, and I would hear the boomers are getting worked up tonight. Well, I think we finally got hit the right button for the millennial to get worked up tonight.
Certainly.
And it was great. And thank you everyone for the comments.
Yeah.
Really, it's a really intense issue in a lot of ways. And yeah, is there really a right or wrong here? I don't know. I know that I haven't moved in my position, and it's one of those issues where you stake out a position, and if you move, it's very little, if at all. So, but thanks everyone for joining in. That was really quite interesting to see what was coming back. Okay, well, coming up, a recent study reveals Quebec is the happiest province in Canada. So, we'll have a look at that in a moment, but first a quick recommendation. If you're launching a live stream and or podcast, you're going to need a music bed for your intro and outro, and I would suggest you check Air Media. That's the company behind our theme and countdown music. You can find a link below. Click it and have a look and see what Alistair has.
Yeah, good stuff. Gary, now after that intense back and forth with our viewers, and after all the politics and policy, let's end tonight on a happier note. Literally, a new Leger poll says Quebec is officially the happiest province in Canada.
And the online survey asked near 40,000 Canadians to rate their well-being, and the results show a country that's resilient, a bit tired, but still smiling.
So what's Quebec doing right, Gary? And why are some other provinces feeling less joy these days?
Okay, so let's go to, do I have that? Or...
Montreal Canadiens.
Is that what it is? Okay.
Yes, it is.
So here we go. Quebecers, a happy lot. Quebecers rated their happiness at average of 72.4 out of 100. New Brunswick came in second with an average of 70.2, while Manitoba and Prince Edward Island were at the bottom. Prince Edward Island really surprised me that they had a very, very, very low happiness rating. It's a beautiful countryside. It's, the island and that rich red earth and everything, and the beaches, and I don't know, maybe it's a little dull in the wintertime. I don't know. But, they came in at the bottom, and I really found that surprising. Now, the national average, excluding the territories, they didn't do the territories in this survey, was 68.7. So, we're about 4 points above the national average as far as our level of happiness. Montreal scored the second highest happiness rating out of our 10 large cities. Mississauga was tops. Toronto was on the bottom. Now, think about that for a minute. Mississauga, number one, and Toronto on the bottom. And half the time you don't know if you're driving and living in Mississauga or driving and living in Toronto, really.
Yeah.
And it's a Leger poll that was conducted online between March 31st and April 13th. 39,481 Canadians aged 18 and up were surveyed.
That's a good sample size.
In July, yeah.
That is a
and
good sample
they can't
size.
assign a margin of error to it because it was done online.
Right.
But anyway, so I was thinking about it today. Like, what is it? What's the advantage that we have here in Quebec? This poll seems to be providing an insight into the post-pandemic era and resilience and the cultural patterns that are behind the well-being. Well, yeah. Look at Eddie. When you and I went out back in the end of July, during construction holiday, to try and find the cones.
Yes.
And look at all of the happy people, and a lot of them were tourists and that, but look at the happy people. Look at the fun we had.
Yeah.
The one thing that I'll say, having lived here almost 5 years now, is yes, you have your traffic congestion and traffic tie-ups and crowds and everything, but there's I sense anyway, personally, I sense a certain sort of low key, life goes on and we're having fun while we're, doing it. It reminds me a little bit of what I felt in British Columbia and specifically in Vancouver, but it's different. seem to be like a notch lower again, um, and focused in a couple of areas like completely opposite to here. People love to, a lot of socializing and parties and events and things and food. And out west, yes, there is that as well. But if you're focusing on the food, it's more of the very very healthy sort of California kind of menus and styles.
Hmm.
So I think that's part of it. You see people on the street and they're laughing and they're smiling. Even the construction workers out turning cars away from streets that are closed and sending them
Yeah.
down to a detour that comes to a dead end. But they're all smiling and they seem to be happy.
Yeah. You know what, Gary? I think you got to look at the culture of Quebec. I mean, let's get away from, I mean, there's like 80, I think there was 86 different registered cultural community and language groups here in Montreal alone, which really makes us a metropolitan. I think a lot of it has to do with the French joie de vivre, the love of
Mm-hmm.
life. You find
Mm-hmm.
that. I mean, my wife and I recently traveled France, and we got the vibe of joie de vivre, the joy of life, with the cafes, with the restaurants, with the people in these small villages and towns, the welcoming arms. I find you will find a lot of that in Montreal without looking very hard. You'll find the same thing in Quebec City as well. Um, uh, we recently had visitors from California, and they were just so enthralled by how beautiful our city was and how nice people were to them. I mean, being Americans, they were expecting the worst, and far from it. It's just the way that Montreal works. And look, Gary, you and I both professionally, we traveled right across the country. And I think a lot of it has to do with the way major cities, major metropolitan cities like Montreal, your Toronto's, and Vancouver's, the way the city is in terms of um, trying to promote greater quality of life. And when I conducted business in Toronto, whether I went there representing my company or whether I was there as a customer, listening to proposals and whatnot, I found that the city that presented the greatest stressors to me in terms of work was when I worked in Toronto. Very often, and this is no diss to Toronto as a city. Recently, I went there as well and really had a wonderful time there. But I just found, from a professional perspective, people in Toronto are way more high strung than any place I ever visited as a tourist, or any place I visited as a professional doing my work as I was pursuing my career and representing my company. It was just really a go 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 rat race environment. You'd think you'd be working in an American city. Um,
Mm-hmm.
so I think, like, I wasn't surprised when you mentioned Toronto did less well than Mississauga. Toronto it's a go 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 city, and in a lot of cases, after you finish your day job, you're pursuing something in the evening to make ends meet. So I think that works on the local community in a very negative way, and that may actually show during relaxed moments within the city or within a restaurant environment. I don't know. Toronto has a lot of festivals. Montreal still has a lot of festivals, although a lot of them moved to Toronto for reasons we won't go into right now. But I mean, people here in Montreal, they look forward to the official start of summer, which is Grand Prix weekend, and
Right. Yeah.
the entire city just embraces that entire event. I don't go to the Grand Prix, but I soak in everything around the Grand Prix. Um, Old Montreal, vibrant. It's people. It's buzzing. People having a great time. We have the musical festivals here. We have the jazz festival, the comedy festival. I mean, it's Montreal is known as the festival capital of North America for very good reason. We can throw and host a good party, and I don't think that'll ever change. And even when there isn't a festival going, Gary, I mean, we've walked around Montreal quite often, and there's always a buzz, people having a great time. And we're not speaking about the millennials or just that group having a wonderful time. You know, retired people all over the place, holding hands, all walks of life, from different parts of the world. I mean, everyone just seems to enjoy being a Montrealer, and that's what I meant during segment one. Where, you know what, an Anglophone living in Quebec, it's just such a beautiful province to live in. It's a great city, like politics and language issue aside. Okay, it's a beautiful province. People are genuine. They're most of the time and you have the few exceptions, but in general, people are wonderful here. They go out of their way to speak to you in English when they see you struggling. Nature here is spectacular, like any other place in Canada. Quebec has got its spectacular nature as well. So yeah, I'm not surprised by Montreal ranking or Quebec ranking up there as the happiest province, one of the happiest provinces in the country. And what's
It
not
is
to
the
be happy
happiest,
about,
yeah.
right? And
Yeah.
what's not to be
You know,
happy about?
and I think part of the Montreal itself is the number of green spaces that we have
Hmm.
around this city. I'm just amazed by the work that they have put into uh, developing these green spaces, and it's twofold. First of all, I love going out and walking around the park across the street or through the park, um, keeping my eyes open. So anyhow, you know, it's just I go out my front door and there it is, and
Yeah.
then we're not that far away from the canal. 2 or 3 minute walk to the canal and up and down like it's just there's so much that way that the minute you go out your front door, you can't help but feel relaxed just to have that nature around you. And when they put the lawn chairs in the park this year,
Hmm.
every night of the summer, if I was taking the dog out for final, there were people in the chairs and the laughter that you would hear and
Yeah.
going on and everything. It was really just something. And I
It's
think
easier
that
to
that's,
decompress. Very easy to decompress.
yeah, very, very, very much so. Let's catch up on a couple of comments for this as well.
Hmm.
Okay, and Joe comes in with, who wouldn't be happy with all that poutine and smoked meat?
Good point, Joe.
Yeah, absolutely.
uh,
And then we go to Jen. Oh, this is moving to Montreal from Toronto. I can feel a difference in the work life balance and people prioritizing socializing and leaving the office versus the Toronto hustle, where
mhm.
I would leave the office after midnight most often. Montreal gives a big city feel at a slower pace.
The point I was trying to make. Well said, Jen.
Yeah, yeah. And sometimes she was leaving a lot later than in midnight too,
Hmm.
on a lot of occasions. So, and then Deborah comes in with, as a woman, you bet I'm happy to be here. The QC government ensuring I keep my rights. It would be nice if I could discuss my health in English. One step at a time. We'll get there. We'll get there. And Joe comes back with 3 Toronto. It's because they have to they have to suffer the
Joe, you're
Leafs
getting
early
nasty.
exit every year.
You're getting nasty, Joe.
Uh, good one, Joe. Good
I'm
one.
I'm pissed because I didn't think of it.
Jeez.
Oh boy.
So, yeah, I'm not surprised that Quebec came out number one, and nor am I surprised that Montreal was in the top two. And uh, you know, I think Montreal, as I say, is doing a great job and has done a great job in like people places outside,
Mhm.
with the parks and the canal, which is federal, and just different things, and the splash pads and all of that. I think they've done an excellent job. And when you go out, you can't help but feel relaxed when you see that kind of activity going on and hear the laughter. That's the thing, you know. And Deborah's gone out with Rocky for final at night, you know, sometimes 10:30, 11 o'clock at night. And she'll come in, she'll say, the streets are just full of people and they're having such a great time as they're walking to wherever. You just get that rush from that. So anyhow, Eddie, you know, it could be, there's a lot of things involved. And like Joe said, the poutine and smoked meat certainly play into it. And maybe it's the croissants. And maybe it's the culture, definitely the culture. But if happiness really is contagious, then the rest of Canada might want to catch, just might want to catch whatever Quebec's having.
Yeah. And that's Night Talk Canada for this week. From laws that define us to lunches that divide us, to a little reminder that happiness still lives north of the 49th. I'm Eddie Tekalik. Good night.
And remember to subscribe, like, and comment on YouTube, and like and follow on our Facebook page. We are also on Instagram, TikTok, and X. Just search Night Talk Canada. Plus, we're on YouTube Shorts and Facebook Reels. Honest, unfiltered, Canadian. The conversation we should be having. Night Talk Canada returns in 7 days. I'm Gary MacDonald. Good night.